last session for the second cycle. So we're talking about project stakeholder management. So as you know, this is the format we have. Basically, we talk about how we manage the meeting, every section that we have. We'll have an icebreaker because in general terms, we have new people every session to just know each other and um, create a sense of community. Then our main topic for today, we have Rodrigo presenting. Then we have our Go Reflect board, and then the session that is interactive, everyone participating. That will be 10 and then 15 minutes for open discussion to move the cards from the voting to the discussion and closing. And at the end, we have a breakout room to see if we have also still questions to cover or more close point to have a touch base and continue talking about that. And then at the end, the PMP questions, and then how we can claim the PDUs and the link for the survey. Okay, so this is our media disclosure. So today we are doing this PM discussion live in YouTube. So then that's basically confirming that we have the consent from everyone to use this information. So we are using um, the screenshots or taking the pictures of the attendees um, just for marketing purposes or things like that from LPMN and Unstoppable Me. So it's important that you are aware of that. If and then we'll start having famous people from here, so we don't have liability on that. Okay, the facilitator for today, starting from the right to the left. So we have Andrew Gutierrez. He is a PMP Scrum Master and has been in the banking industry for a while. And he used to be also part of the board of directors in LPMN in the past. So right now helping us with the facilitation process for several of these sessions. So thanks a lot, Andrew, and then we'll continue talking today and then the next sections to come. We have also Rodrigo Misley. So this is the first time for Rodrigo. So he just landed in Canada recently. And Rodrigo is a civil engineer with a master's degree, and he holds several PM certifications, not only from the PMI, from other organizations. So he has been in the academia for a while. We'll have a good presentation from him, and then we'll see what else he has in stock for us. And myself, Jaime Gonzalez, um, computer engineer. I have my master's in finance, the PMP, Scrum Master, and I've been with banks industry for almost 30 years now. And with LPMN for almost 15 years now as well. Okay, so this is basically the format for, I think all of us, we have been at least once in this. This is the link office format. We create our Kanban board and then brainstorming to have what are the topics that we want to take up about stakeholder management. Uh, we discuss, okay, will be the questions that we want to address to have confirmation, to see clarity on the topics, etc. Then we have the voting to have with the higher priority topics that will be in discussion. So then based on the votes, um, we can select the main topic first, then second, third, etc. And then we will just evacuate from the in progress or in discussion to done. So what's important is that we vote, we decide what topics to discuss, etc. And this is participation. So basically what we are looking at is having 1.5 hours of working together. Uh, using this Zoom as a means to connect and share information. And as I said, we are doing a live today on YouTube. And basically what we need here is that everyone participate, provide ideas, speak up and listen to each other as well, and then make this collective learning experience. And I would say also having fun while we're doing this all together. Any question or comments so far?
Yep.
No, thank you. We are all set.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now what we have is our icebreaker. So is it time for Ivan to please make a breakout rooms? How many people do we have today?
30.
So we can do breakout rooms of 2 and 1 of 3 because we are
Okay.
odd number. And then we'll have, let's say 5 minutes. So we can see, okay, so what topics do we want to cover for stakeholder management and how we have today the last session for this cycle. And then preparing for the new cycle we have. And also we can either talk about the version 7 coming next year.
Okay. So I'll prepare now.
Thank you.
I mean, I think we're all back. Maybe we can
Yeah.
continue.
Okay, thank you. I think okay, everyone's okay. Welcome back. Let's continue. Let me share my screen again. Can you see the screen?
Nope.
Not yet.
So what's going on here? Okay.
I can see it
See
now.
it now.
Okay, perfect. So then we complete our icebreaker. Hope you have the time to talk to your partners and get to know each other. So now let's move on to stakeholder management. So I want to give you just a introduction, and then we pass over to Rodrigo. Rodrigo will provide the presentation, and once he finishes, we'll start the Go Reflect activities with Andrew. So project stakeholder management basically is to identify the people, the groups, the organizations, and everyone that could be impacted by the project and see what are the expectations that they have, if they can have impact, positive or negative in the project. And there is literature that says that one of the key issues to have problems with implementation is not properly engage all the stakeholders and have strategies to have them aware of the evolution. And now, for example, a lot of people with environmental organizations have problems for the project that we have with infrastructure or mining, things like that. So it's important to analyze the stakeholders, have then register, do proper management of each one, and ensure that we have engagement of them, because if not, project will fail. So in the PIN book, basically we have 4 sessions for processes in the project stakeholder management knowledge area. So the first one is identify stakeholders. That's doing initiation, and then plan stakeholder management during the planning, manage stakeholder management during the execution, and monitor stakeholder engagement in the monitoring and control process. I have highlighted here 2 main components: enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. So it's important how we manage the stakeholders from inside and outside the organization, plus other inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs that we have for the process. Just before transfer these to Rodrigo, basically we can see what is the interest of the stakeholders, let's say here in our X axis, and what is the influence they can have in the project. So if we monitor from low to high, we'll see if he's low influence and low interest, we just need to monitor those stakeholders, will be the less important in the process. What we need to focus is on the key players that will be high influence in the project and high interest in that project. So that will be our promoters or key players. So for them, we have to manage closely and ensure engagement, um, as well as the defenders, because then this is people that could be with low influence, but with high interest in the project. So they can support the project, they can show consideration. So we have to keep them informed, and then they will support because they have high interest. So these will be the people with high interest in the project, both the promoters and the defenders. But also we have to focus on the people that is with low interest for now, but then we'll see if it changes in the future, but they have high influence. So it's important to keep that satisfied and ensure they are participating in the decision. So they meet their needs or exceed the needs and expectations. So then to keep them engaged in the project. So here we have several types of stakeholders, from vendors, consultants, contractors, non-for-profit organizations, ONGs, environmental associations, even celebrities. If we have problems with social media, things like that, so will be issues for the project. So then that's basically at a high level to start with stakeholder management. So now I wanna hand it over to Rodrigo for his presentation. And when he's done, about 20, 25 minutes, so we'll continue with Andrew for the Go Reflect board. Over to you.
Thank you, Jaime. I'm going to share my screen too. You can see my board, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Rodrigo Misle, and this is going to be my first class in English. And then be patient with me, please, and hopefully you understand everything. I know this subject in Spanish so well because I'm a professor, university professor, but this is going to be my first English class. Hopefully you like it. This is a phrase that I make for project management for me. Project management for me is like that. There are no formulas in this world to make successful projects. Only kamikazes like me who have been wrong and learned. This is some phrase that I make. I love that. You need to understand me first, my background, to understand why I make this idea for stakeholders. First one, in project management, I have two roles. The first role is the corporate role. I work in 6 different type of industry, like a contact center, IT, construction company, consumer good. My last job was in the main port of Colombia. In this corporate, I work like a portfolio manager. This is my role in this company. And the second part, the second part is the academic. I am a professor in the civil engineering faculty. I teach project management, strategic or portfolio management, and I teach innovation. This is so important. I teach in Colombia, in Javeriana University is the name of the university. And I was the younger professor, and this is important to everyone, teaching the civil engineering faculty in the master degree program. I only teach in the master degree program. I was 29 years old when I started to teach. The other thing about me that you need to understand is that I'm 4th-generation professor and 3rd-generation professor in project management. That means my grandfather, my father, and myself teach project management. My grandfather teach in the MBM program in university called Los Andes. He teach project management, of course, and he teach business account. My father teach project management, but he teach also decision analytic. And myself, like I say, I teach project management, strategy, and innovation. And we, the 3 of us, we teach in Los Andes University, and I teach now in Colombia in Javeriana University. This is something about me that you need to understand first. Now, why is so important to collect, define, determine expectation from stakeholders? PricewaterhouseCoopers, they do like a case, a study case to bring 6 reasons why project fail. And they say like the second reason is poor population or stakeholder expectation. Of course, the first one is about waste planning, and the third one is poor definition of scope. But we're going to focus here because this is important to this presentation. And I want to show you this video. This video is fantastic for me. I show to my student all the time. And for me, if the expectation of the stakeholder are different from the project scope, and this is important, the project is destined to fail. I want to show you this video to understand why I say that.
When we're designing new products, services, or businesses, the only time you'll know if they're any good.
You listen to the video?
There's no audio. I think from your microphone, you might need to put it near your.
I will share computers now.
I was able to listen to it.
Yeah, because I put that one.
If the designs are good,
Oh, okay.
it's to see
Maybe it's
how
just
they're
me. That's
used
okay.
in the real world, in context. I'm reminded of that every time I walk past Highbury Fields in North London. It's absolutely beautiful. There's a big open green space, there's Georgian buildings around the side, but then there's this mud track that cuts across the middle. People clearly don't want to walk all the way around the edge. Instead, they want to take the shortcut, and that shortcut is self-reinforcing. Now, this shortcut is called a desire path, and it's often the path of least resistance. And I find them fascinating because they're often the point where design and user experience diverge. Now, at this point, I should apologize because you guys are going to start seeing these everywhere. But today, I'm going to pick 3 I find interesting and share what actually it reminds me about launching new products and services. So the first is in the capital city of Brazil, Brasilia. And it reminds me that sometimes you have to just focus on designing for a real need at low friction. If you zoom in the very center of Brasilia, just where the point is there, you see it's littered with desire paths. They're absolutely everywhere. Now, they thought that they'd future-proof this design. They thought in the future we wouldn't need to walk anywhere, we'd be able to drive. So there was little need for walkways or pavements. But as you can see, there's a real need. These are very dangerous desire paths. If we just pick one in the middle, you can see it crosses 15 lanes of traffic. It won't surprise you guys that Brasilia has 5 times the pedestrian accident rate of your average US city. People are resourceful. They'll always find the low friction route. The second desire path I wanted to share is at the University of California. And it reminds me that sometimes the best way to come up with a great design is just to launch it. Now, university campuses are fantastic for spotting desire paths. I think it's because students are always late and they're pretty smart. So they're dashing to lectures, they'll always find the shortcut. And the designers here knew that. So they built the buildings, and then they waited a few months for the paths to form. They then paved them. Incredibly smart approach. The third and final desire path I wanted to share with you is the UNIH. It reminds me that the world's in flux, and we have to respond to those changes. So as your guess, this is a hospital. I've marked for you on the left the oncology department, and the patients would usually stay in hotels down on the bottom right. Now, this was a patient-centered organization, so they laid on cars for the patients. But what they realized when they started offering chemotherapy is the patients rarely wanted to get in cars. They were too nauseous. And so they'd walk back to their hotels. And this desire path that you see diagonally formed, the patients even called it the chemo trail.
Well, everyone listened to the video, no problem with that. I want to repeat again, if the expectation of the stakeholder are different from the project scope, the project is destined to fail. This is so important to me.
When we're designing,
So, this is a joke. I love to read that. I don't know. I want to explain a little bit the joke. The boss say finish this project in 2 weeks, of course, or the boss say that the same, and make sure you get input from the executive, all the stakeholders, expectation. And he say, of course, this is impossible. And he say, why? Well, we try code one, and of course, the stakeholder never answered and never show off, and of course we will say, well, try faxing him. It's like a joke for understand why it's so difficult to reach, all the expectation in a stakeholder. And this is another thing that is so funny. This. But how does good practice say we should raise requirement expectation? The framework explanation about the scope are, everyone saw this picture. In class, this is a typical picture that we put for explain scope. Everyone saw a scope different. But this is theory. I want a solution, and this is the thing I start to make these new ideas. The other problem is from PMI guy. They say to raise a stakeholder expectation, you need to use these traditional methods like an interview, focus group, brainstorming, mapping. I don't know. This is the traditional method. But for me, this method don't work because most of people lie or hide information. A lot of people do that, for me. And for this reason, I propose two forms to raise expectation. The first one called Mr. Shopping, and the second, Lego Serious Play. I'm going to explain one by one. The first one is Mr. Shopper. This is so funny, My process to raise expectation with Mr. Shopper. The first day of class, I dress up like another student. I use the Converse. I hate the Converse, but I use it. I arrive to the class very early. I place a sign in the board, and the sign say, please wait for me, start filling out the survey that is in my desk. Then I sit back, to wait my student. A student start to arrive to read and start to read this board. They take the survey, my student. The main question in the survey is, why are you taking this class? This is the main question. Then my student start to filling out the survey, and I start to asking questions about expectation about the class. Then when everyone finished the survey, I stand up and I say, welcome to project management class, and I'm going to be your professor. And this is your first lesson, collect expectation correctly. I collect the survey and compare, and this is funny, what was writing and what said to me, and look the different part. Look the different. This is the result. In the conversation, Carlos said to me, there was not other class on the schedule, but in the survey, he said, right, I want to learn project management because it's my passion. It's a different expectation. And Maria said to me, this class is mandatory, but in the survey she wrote, it's necessary for my training. Camila put the teacher is easy, it's so fun, but in the survey, of course, she would know the teacher experience, of course. Manuel said, I want to earn more money. He said to me that, but in the survey, he put, I want to be a project manager to change the world. But this is the real expectation that he had in class. And I need to work with this expectation, not with that one. And this is the reason a lot of people lie in this part. But this methodology was used only for 5 semesters. Then the word spread, of course, about my strategy. And once when I asked a student, why are you taking my class? He answered me, because it's a privilege to learn about project management. I said, you figure out my methodology. And now I try to hire a person to join as a student in my class, to make that. But it's hard, but I did that. It's so funny, that part. And the second part that I want to share with you is this Lego Serious paper. A little more about context. And I want to explain about my father. My father played with his student with Play-Doh. Everyone knows what is Play-Doh. To try to make tangible abstract areas of knowledge like a scope or risk. He tried to do that. Then I lived this process since I was a child in my house. My mother is very, very angry, upset with my father because there was plastic all over the house. This is so funny for me. And then my father was a very popular professor, And I went to many of first class to learn this base methodology that you use to student. And when Lego Serious Play certification come out, I connect the learning part of my father with this part of Lego bricks. And I'm going to show you how I connect that. I use this methodology for this specific area of knowledge. I use, of course, for a scope, for research, for risk. This is very, very interesting, and of course, stakeholder. But we need to let focus here because it's the matter what we. And the other thing is in the pen book guide, they say in the scope part, of course, how to collect requirement, and they say prototypes. And I wrote in 2016, I wrote to the PMI this part, like I play Lego with my student, and I think Lego is like a prototype. You know, I did that. And they answered me, this is very nice, this is, you know, but they can put Lego, of course, in the PM guy, you know. What is Lego Serious Play? A little explanation about Lego Serious Play. It's a methodology developed in 2010 by Lego. It's a playful tool to generate new business model. This is the use to Lego Serious Play. Lego Serious Play don't work for PMI or for project management. This is something new that I invent because my father tried to do that the same. But Lego Serious Play is worthy only to generate new business model. But I connect, you know. But what is the theory of Lego Serious Play? The first theory that they have is about Piaget. I don't know if you know who is Piaget. For me, yes. He said that teaching means creating situations where a structure can be discovered. This is too much. The second theory about Lego Serious Play, they say about paper. Paper is the second one. They say the role of the teacher is to create the conditions for invention and provide ready-made knowledge. This is so important. And the third one is the most important part of Lego Serious Play, is connection between the hands and the mind. You know, and they say 80% of your brain is connected with your hand. And this is too important to Lego Serious Play. How it works, Lego Serious Play? He works with 4 steps. The first step, facilitator poses the question. You need to ask him a question to the persons. Then individuals build a model, one model individual. Then individual tell a story about this model that he built. And for question and reflection. This is 4 steps, but the most important part of Lego Serious Play is these 7 application techniques. You need to build individual models. Everyone needs to build an individual model. Then you need to try to build a shared model. Then you need to create a landscape. Then you need to make connections. Then you need to build a system, play of core emergency, and then you need to extract simple guide principle. I'm going to show you that with stakeholders, how I do this process with the stakeholders. It's so fun. Well, but my idea is to change my class. You know, this is the regular class, and this is my class, this is me. Of course, this is my student, everyone is older than me, but this is the master's degree program, this is the problem, but I always play with my student in my class. And the other thing, of course, I change my workplace. This is my office. So funny, my office, because it's a big office that I have in the port, but all the time I play with all my workers about the project. This is my mini project. But this is the step-by-step about stakeholder. First step, you need to build an individual model that represents yourself. I sit with the stakeholders and say, please, try to build yourself. It's hard. Look, this is an example that I put. Look how one sponsor make your build like your model is so hard, like, because it's a shark. He thinks it's a shark. And all these have a meaning. This is important to understand. This is another example that I put. A community leader this is the way how he build herself. It is very, very, very important because, like I say, every piece of his they have information, and you need to know this information. what I mean this tiger, what I mean that, what I mean that. You need to understand everything. Then this is the first step. The second step is the table part. And what I do, first you need to have the scope of the project in the center of the table. This is the scope. I need to explain that if we have time about a scope. But you have the scope in the center. You build a model that represents the scope of the project, all right? Then you start to build, of course, the stakeholder part. And you can put this stakeholder in the table. And this part is a stakeholder, the left part of the table, okay? You put the inference. Is inference high, medium, or low? And you only put, the stakeholder here, 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 wherever you want. And then with a flag, all right, you can put the power, all right? If it's a power high, you put the flag in here. If a medium, you put here. If a low, you put here. And then you can build a matrix about that. It's nice. But you can do the same with risk. This is the nice part. And you put the impact, here in the table, and the probability you put with a flag too. High probability, medium, low. You can do with both. Then, of course, you can build the matrix, and then you build the expectation. You ask him about, this is our example to the sponsor, please explain me your expectation. What is your expectation about this project? And of course, he's going to build a very, very hard model, because this model have a lot of information. Everyone have a meaning. This is important. You need to understand that every piece have a meaning. All right. My expertise is to know how to read this model. This is expertise. Like I start to develop this expertise, because every piece have information. Every color have information. All right. And you need to come up. And then the step 4, you place the expectation and the stakeholder model together and connect. This is another part. It's very nice. The expectation with a delivery of the scope. Remember, this is the scope, and you can connect that with the scope. If you can see how many expectations are connected with the model. And this is nice because you have the scope, and maybe every expectation have connected one part of the scope. And this is very revealed information for me. The step number 5 is doing the execution. This is the fun part, to play. The stakeholder can move, and this is nice location. All right, maybe the power change, all right, and you need to start to move, and the meetings are made through the game. This is the nice part, moving piece according to the present situation that we have in that moment. And this is like my meeting, project management meeting. This is the number 5 step. I want to show you, for finish this part, a project that I made with my student, with Lego, of course. I want to, first I want to, that you saw the video first, and then I can explain more about it. There we go. Sorry, the video is in Spanish, sorry, but you're going to understand. It's a short video, but you're going to understand.
Departamento colombiano que ha sufrido durante años los dolores de la guerra. Está ubicado al suroeste del país. Es un excelente lugar para reencontrarse con los ancestros. Allí podrás encontrar reservas indígenas y biodiversidad. Tras un recorrido de 14 horas en bus desde Bogotá hasta Villagarzón, más 1 hora y media desde el municipio de Villagarzón hasta Santa Teresa de Rupascayaco en camioneta, y de 1 hora y media caminando, llegamos a la vereda de Playa Larga, donde se encuentra ubicada la comunidad indígena Agua. Todo esto con el objetivo de identificar y conocer las necesidades de la comunidad a través de esta metodología, logrando un ambiente cómodo para que los integrantes de la comunidad nos expresaran sus necesidades individuales y grupales.
Nos carecemos de, primero que todo, de carretera. Sí. No tenemos vías de acceso.
This is a stakeholder that tried to make the expectation, to build the expectation with Lego. You know, he going to explain to me what is the expectation about this project, and he say, well, my expectation is that I don't have energy, I don't have, you know, read, I don't have a lot of stuff. It's very nice.
Segundo, no tenemos energía. Tercero, carecemos también de agua, viales sanitarias. Cuarto, como punto que, por ejemplo, lo de semillas, sembríos, plantaduros.
Que planten la luz, que llegue una casa, que llegue a la casa. En mi casa. En mi casa.
And she say, I only need electricity that for this project. This is my expectation. And that was very nice project for me and for my student, because we play with an ethnic population that we have in Colombia. And this is, for me, is a reveal part, because I understand that Lego, everyone can play with Lego, you know, it's not for only cultural person. I can play Lego with everyone. It's a very nice and reveal project for me, because in the beginning, we think the project was like an electricity project to bring electricity to this population, but no, at the end, the project is another scope, is another needed that the population have. Yeah, I think so. I think so. That's it for, you know, it's only 50 minutes that I have for that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. That's very good. So now over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Jaime. So this brings us to the Go Reflect board. And what we'll be doing now is we'll be taking a few minutes to have everyone on the call enter in their questions. And to do this, you want to click on the plus sign here. And based on stakeholder management, enter in questions that you have that you'd want to consider for the PMP exam, or if you have any questions
Andrew?
in general from. Yeah?
Sorry, can you share the link to the Go Reflect on the chat room, please?
Sure.
In the chat box.
Thank you.
And sorry, 1 second. Okay, so I shared the link in the chat room for everyone to join on the Go Reflect board. And when you're all there, in the next few minutes, we'll start entering in questions, as previously mentioned, and actually we'll do it right now. And once everyone's questions, when everyone had the time to enter in their questions, we'll then unmask the cards. So right now there will be masks. And then we'll start voting. And when you do have a question, you'll be able to see a plus or, well, a plus to be able to provide your vote. At which case then we'll take the highest ranking questions, move them to accepted, and then commence from there. So everyone, please start entering in your questions for stakeholder management. Are you able to see the questions? I'm not sure if I have the masking on because I've seen.
The masking is on, yeah.
The masking is on. It's okay.
Mindy, I'm just going to move your question back to the proposed column. Okay, so we'll wrap up in the next minute. So at 7:24, we'll start the voting.
Sorry, Andrea, I have a question. Can we have 2 questions?
Sure, yes. Raise as many questions as you'd like.
Great, thanks.
Okay, 7:24. I'm going to unmask the cards. Okay, so we can all see it now. And I'd like everyone to now go ahead and start voting by using the plus button on the questions.
So sorry, my computer shut off. So sorry.
Not a problem, Rodrigo. We'll put back. We're just in the midst of voting.
I can hear you.
We can hear you, Rodrigo.
I can hear you, Rodrigo.
Jaime, maybe if you can talk to Rodrigo on the chat and guide him through.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. We'll give about a minute to collect the votes, and then we'll start. We'll start with the questions.
Now I can hear you. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, 7:25. I'll start bringing in the questions. Okay, so we have 4 for now. Let's begin. So the first question is, what should the stakeholder engagement plan include? Anybody want to start answering this one?
I have an idea. I haven't seen any stakeholder engagement plan in real life, but my idea is that there can be brief descriptions about the stakeholders' relationship with this project and what are they benefiting from or what are they adding to the project. This can be included in the engagement plan so that we can adjust what can we get from them, or what can we give to them. This can be one of the things that can be included, I guess.
Okay, so descriptions of the stakeholders. And
so what I think is what I think the question is about is looking at the input into how you come about with the stakeholder engagement plan. So basically, for you to be able to do that, you need the project charter. And the project charter is a document that determines the scope and the entirety of how and what the project is about. And so based on this information and based on the information that you can gather from the project charter, that will now determine how you constitute your stakeholders and stakeholders list, and determine how you analyze them based on prominence and how important they are to the project.
Okay.
I'd also like to add something.
Please go ahead.
If it is something to do with maintaining a stakeholder register, so I'm treating the word engagement synonymous to communication or a register, then high-level details of stakeholder would be included. And if we have an escalation matrix defined internally, we can also group them under different levels, level 1, 2, and 3, so that in case of any severity or any problem, the right person can be reached at the right time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I think it's the engagement plan. Also, we have the strategy that we have to follow with each stakeholder according to the importance of each stakeholder. What is the best way to keep that stakeholder happy with the project? How can we get that the stakeholder continue pushing the project and try to work for the success of the project? For me, it's a strategy because the classification of the stakeholder and the impact on the project is part of the stakeholder identification.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a PMBOK reference that we can put in?
Yeah, I'm working on that, but then having issues with my copy of the book.
Okay. So I'll briefly bring up the process group where we talk about plan for stakeholder engagement. And as mentioned by one of our members, a project charter is an input, as well as your project management plan. So that would consider the resources or stakeholders for that matter, and a list of who they are, as well as how to engage them. So just as the team was suggesting, this is an input for them. And here's stakeholder register. And you want to consider their agreements. So what are their needs, as well as inside the organization, as well as outside, how that's influenced. And from that, you have your stakeholder engagement plan as an output. Here are the tools and techniques to interact and how to elicit that information from those stakeholders. So this is on page 516 in terms of the inputs that go toward creating the stakeholder engagement plan. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I'm going to take a little bit of time out of the breakout room just so that we can see these other questions. Amanda, is that okay with your question? Are you satisfied?
Yes, Andrew. So just to highlight the importance of having the the stakeholder engagement plan, and we need to remember, as you showed before, that this is the output from plan stakeholder engagement, and it's very important to highlight in that plan what would be the communication that all of our stakeholders needs to be communicated in terms of a status, the progress of the project, and also as our member said, to highlight what would be the strategy to manage all our stakeholders. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, we'll move that to completed. And the next one is, during stakeholder analysis of an environmental-based project, which stakeholder is more prominent, the sponsor or the people that is going to be impacted? So this is a bit of a situational question. Comments from the group?
Both.
So I heard both.
Yeah, for me, both.
Okay. So it's a balance. Any other comments?
Well, I think the sponsor have the two main factors. They have interest and they have power. I don't know if the people is in the stakeholder that are impacted by the project have power. What is the level of interest? For me, the sponsor is the main actor. The sponsor and the customer sometimes is the main actor in the project.
That's good. And then I will say that it really depends. So we can have projects in which the sponsor is powerful, and then they can lead the way, having the project approved and moving ahead. If let's say the people impacted is not that powerful or not are organized and have the concerns voice. But in other cases, having a very strong sponsor, we can have, let's say, the community or the environmental groups or something that they are really powerful, and they can even not only overcome the power of the sponsor, but also even go to the point that have the project canceled if there is having negative impact in either in the community or for the environment. So I would say that it depends.
Absolutely. And in the PMBOK, on page 512, the stakeholder analysis here talks about the different criteria when analyzing a stakeholder. So in terms of their interests, rights. So if there's some legal rights that are protecting them, then they definitely would have the power. So it does depend. Ownership. So there might be people who are interested, and you might have lobbyists, but then there's an owner who would be directly responsible, as well as knowledge and contribution. So factoring all of these would then help to calculate that power influence grid. Akpan, does that answer your question, or is there something else you'd like to consider?
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I was actually looking out for people's experiences in dealing with this, because it's quite explicit in the PMBOK book. But when you get to real life, I overheard, when Rodrigo was, educating us on some of his approaches using the Lego bit. What I noticed about that was that the stakeholders were sort of localized. I don't know whether the stakeholders that are going to be impacted by the project are all the stakeholders that are located within where that Lego session was going on. Because one of the challenges I've had to see, I've not really experienced it, I've experienced it on a low scale, is that sometimes when you want to enact this project, and okay, like an environmental based thing, I'm sure they will have done maybe an environmental impact assessment on what the project is going to entail and all of that. But then the person that is the sponsors, either the government or a corporation that is putting down the resources to get this project. Sometimes you can't make any decision, even if the environment or the people or whoever is going to be impacted by the project, even if they seem to say, okay, yes, this project can go on based on certain factors. If the people who actually put the project forward decides to pull the resources, the project is not going to go ahead. But if the people that are going to be impacted by the project are somehow managed, somehow you can probably have some kind of consensus on what their concerns are or the issues that, make them to want to say, okay, yes, we want this project to go ahead, or no, we don't want the project to go ahead. So if you can manage that part, then you can actually go ahead. So sometimes my feeling is that the sponsor, especially as a project manager, the sponsor, the person that has the resources, always will go a notch higher. During my stakeholders analysis, I will always place him in the higher point than the people that the project is going to be impacted. But from what everybody has said, yes, I understand, yes, but I was hoping to get some kind of, experience-based response. So,
if you allow me, I'll give you my experience, James.
Okay.
I work for real estate development side of things in the construction industry. So, for instance, we go through a lot of hurdles with the city during approvals, right? So even though, for instance, let's say the owner of the development company is the project sponsor, maybe there is a lot of expectations from different stakeholders, from people living in those neighborhoods, or even from the city, right? So many times, if the city say it doesn't go, it won't go, it won't happen. And there are some times where the people or the public say it won't go, and then they gather together and they manifest and all that, then the project, it won't happen, no matter what the project sponsors say. So in those cases, probably it's more important to manage those expectations if we want the project to happen, or at least to inform the project sponsor about these influences, right? Okay. As well. So it can be both ways, or as you say, if the people really want the project, that project, it may happen in spite of the project sponsor. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you,
James.
Thank you, Ivan.
Good question. Very thought-provoking. Okay, so it's 7:40. I think now we'll take some time to go into the breakout rooms. I'm still sharing my screen so that you can see some of the other questions that we didn't get to. And in the breakout rooms, you're definitely encouraged to discuss those with your other members. So Ivan, if you wouldn't mind setting up the breakout rooms.
Okay, how much time?
Let's go for 5 to 7 minutes. We'll squeeze it in.
Okay, 7 minutes.
And then
how many people?
Groups of 2 or 3?
Maybe groups of 3.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay, 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're back.
Excellent. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I believe we have the poll set up that we can begin.
Yes. Can you help us with the poll, Ivan?
Yes, just let me know when you want me to launch the first one.
So I think, yeah, we're going to start now with the poll. Okay, first question.
Okay, so I'll walk us through that. And so for question one, I don't see the question anymore, but I'll bring up the slide that has it. And so the answer is A, managed stakeholder engagement decreases risk of project failure. There is no control stakeholder engagement. There it is, it comes up again. So there is no control stakeholder engagement or develop stakeholder engagement. It's either plan or manage. And so the correct answer is A, because when you're executing, you're being active with the management. Okay, so can we get the second question, please? Okay, plan stakeholder management is fundamentally concerned with all the following except. Okay, so majority chose development of the stakeholder register, with a couple of votes for the other ones, and the correct answer is answer B. So majority of everyone got that one right. The stakeholder register is created in the identify stakeholders process. Let's move on to the third question, please. Which of the following is not included in the stakeholder management plan? Okay, everyone, this one's unanimous. Project life cycle. And the correct answer is A. You all got it right. The project life cycle is selected and defined in the project management plan. Okay, and last question, please. Which of the following is not an input to the control stakeholder engagement process? Okay, and most people picked work performance information, and otherwise project documents came in second, and issue log. And the correct answer is D. Work performance information is an output of control stakeholder engagement. Excellent. So congratulations for those who got the questions correct. And that was a mini quiz on PMP style questions. We hope you enjoyed it. And so that brings us to the end of the PMP study group. I'd like to explain how to claim PDUs for your participation. It's 1.5 hours. And by logging into My PMI, going to the website pmi.org, you can sign into your account, on which case under the My PMI page, you'll have a dashboard under the certification status where you can click on Report PDUs on CCRS. And from there, you'll fill out the information where you'll see the links for both education and giving back claim categories near the bottom. And fill out the required information to claim the PDUs. If you're not sure what the name of this course is or the email address, we can provide that in a follow-up. But Jaime, do we have that in our
Yeah.
presentation that we'll give out?
Yeah, it's board@lpmn.ca. Yep. I think it's in the next page.
Yes, here
Yeah.
it is. Okay, so I don't know if you want to screenshot this in case you don't have the information or quickly jot it down, but the organization is Latin Project Management Network.
Network. Yeah, there is an error there. It's network.
Okay, network. And the course is Project Management Discussion. In this case, it's going to be Stakeholder Management. Contact person is Jaime Gonzalez. And as mentioned, the contact email is board@lpmn.ca. This is technical, so you can claim 1.5 under the PDUs here. And then lastly, tell us how we did. We hope you enjoyed this stakeholder management course, or PMP study group. And I'll put the link inside the group chat so that you have access to it. And Jaime, any final words?
No, I just want to say thank you to everybody for the participation. That's fantastic. We conclude this cycle 2 today. So now we are reviewing the surveys and preparing the cycle 3. I think most likely we will start on November the 10th, and then again with 6 topics on a weekly basis. Looking forward to see all of you plus additional people. Thank you so much for your participation and really appreciate that.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'd like to also
thank you so much.
thanks to Rodrigo for
Thank you.
his presentation and bringing what he presents in his master's class to our group here. Thank you and congratulations on your first English class for project management.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.